What if I told you that every breakthrough idea that you ever had didn't come from your brain? What if the moments that you called genius, those flashes of insight that changed everything in your life, weren't generated by thinking harder, but by stopping thought altogether? Here's the wild thing. The most successful founders I know don't grind 18 hours a day trying to force solutions. They have learned to access something else, something that AI fundamentally cannot even touch. And the science behind this is about to blow your mind. Because what I'm about to show you isn't theory. It's not philosophy, it's the neuroscience, the quantum physics, and 5,000 years of ancient wisdom, all pointing to the same uncomfortable truth. Your brain does not generate ideas. Your brain has never generated a new idea and is not designed to create a single original thought. Your brain receives them. Pause for a second. If this is even true, then it means you've been training the wrong part of your mind your entire life. But before we go any further, if you're new here, I'm Ale Grampa, a serial entrepreneur on a mission to merge science and ancient wisdom. And this is Whole Grain Wisdom, the space where we reconnect the dots between neuroscience and spirituality, physics and mysticism, so we can all prepare for the greatest revolution in human history, the consciousness revolution. And in this video, I will show you something that will change the way that you understand your own mind forever. In 1861, neurologist Paul Broca studied a patient nicknamed Tan, because that's the only syllable he could speak. This man could only say Tan, Tan, Tan over and over. That's it. But here's what's remarkable. He understood everything. His intelligence was completely intact. His comprehension was perfect. He could follow complex conversations. He knew exactly what was happening around him. He just couldn't produce speech. After Tan's death, Broca performed an autopsy and he found a lesion in the left inferior frontal gyrus, a special region destroyed in the brain. This was the first anatomical proof that brain regions control specific functions, and this became famous as the Broca's area. You may have learned about it in school, but here's the red flag neuroscience completely ignored. This man's speech production center was destroyed, yet his intelligence, comprehension, and cognitive abilities remained fully intact. How? If the brain generates intelligence, if consciousness lives in those neurons, then destroying part of the brain should destroy part of the intelligence. But it didn't. This discovery happened in late 1800s and science dismissed it as an isolated case. But then, over 100 years later, something impossible happened. We are at Sheffield University and a student walks in complaining of headaches. Nothing unusual. Dr. John Lorber orders a routine brain scan. But what he saw in that brain scan seemed absolutely impossible. This man's skull is 95% cerebrospinal fluid. He has virtually no brain tissue, just a thin layer of neurons lining the inside of his skull. He should be in a vegetative state. He should be barely conscious. Instead, well, his IQ was marked at 126, above average, first-class honors degree in mathematics, living a completely normal life. Dr. Lorber documented 600 of these cases, 600 people with minimal brain tissue living normal, intelligent lives. The neuroscience community remained completely silent, because if the brain generates consciousness, if intelligence lives in those neurons, this man should not have existed. And an even more important question is now due. Where is this intelligence coming from? To answer this question, we need to call in what ancient civilizations knew for over 5,000 years. Because on this topic, modern science is still catching up. Ancient wisdom, separated by thousands of miles and centuries, all described intelligence in the exact same way, as something received from the outside, not generated inside. The Greeks invoked the Muses, 9 goddesses of external divine intelligence. They used the word theoptos, literally God breathed. When a poet or a philosopher created something brilliant, they didn't say, I came up with this. They always said the muse breathed into them. The ideas arrived from the outside, and here's what's fascinating. They performed rituals with laurel smoke and frankincense to induce altered states. They were deliberately shifting their brain into receptive mode. They called this breakthrough creativity divine madness, a possession state beyond their rational faculties. And they knew they couldn't force it. You could only receive it. And even before the Greeks, yogic philosophy distinguished between 2 intelligence systems: Buddhi, the intuitive intelligence, and Manas, the rational mind. And they called the sources of this intelligence Akasha, the formless universal field, the cosmic memory. And they could access it through meditation and self-inquiry, practices designed to quiet manas so that Buddhi could receive from the field. Once again, they knew you couldn't generate this intelligence, only receive it. In shamanic cultures across the globe, the preferred gateway to connect with this intelligence was by the use of drumming at a very specific frequency, 4 to 7 hertz. Their music and dances were thus able to induce trance states and access what they called the spirit world. And as we'll see in a moment, these are the same frequencies that neuroscientists later discovered and identified as the Theta frequency range. Shamans were literally entraining their brainwaves to shift from beta into theta, where breakthrough intelligence actually originates. They didn't know the neuroscience, of course, but they understood completely the mechanism. And there are plenty more examples that we can make, but connecting the dots doesn't require much more. Here we have 3 completely different civilizations, multiple contents and different languages between them, all describing the same mechanism. Genius is not generated internally, it's received from an external field. Modern neuroscience just gave us the vocabulary to prove they were right. And here's what they discovered in the last decades. Your mind operates through 2 completely different intelligence systems. System 1, your intuitive mind, it processes 11 million bits of information per second, while System 2, your rational mind, only processes 40 bits per second. And this is not just a very tiny difference, this is a 275,000 times power difference. Every time that you think harder to solve a problem, you're using the 40-bit system, and that's why you remain stuck. Because your rational mind is like a dial-up internet trying to stream an 8K video. This is exactly what the yogis meant by Buddhi versus Manas. Same intelligence architecture, different language, and here is the problem. Everything that we have been taught so far at school, at work, at business, trains the system 2, your rational intelligence, the slow system, and the one that technology can and will completely replace. But it gets even stranger. Science discovered the networks that activate system 1 and 2, and turns out they cannot be active at the same time. The task positive network handles execution, the focused work, the analysis, the implementation, while the default mode network handles creation, insight, connecting distant ideas, breakthrough thinking. And Marcus Reichler, an American neurologist, discovered these mechanics in 2001. When one network activates, the other automatically shuts down. They literally work in anti-correlation, like a seesaw. When you're grinding at 2 a.m., when you're stuck doing meaningless and repetitive work, when you work yourself out and thinking that this is the only way to outperform, that's when you're locked in the task positive network. Your default mode network, where real breakthrough intelligence actually lives, is completely offline. And this is not a productivity problem. This is a neuroscience impossibility. And this is why your best ideas arrive in the shower, on walks, or right before sleep. The moment you stop forcing, it's the moment that your task positive network finally releases control and your default mode network comes online. And that's when intelligence floods in. You cannot force the repetitive state, you can only allow it. Now, let me add another fundamental piece to the puzzle, because intelligence does not just divide into systems and networks. It actually operates on different frequencies, like radio channels, each with its own biological signature, emotional tone, and level of access to insight. Once you understand this ladder, your entire experience of thinking will change. Beta is where you spend most of your day, especially if you're a founder. When you're in beta, your biology shifts into defense mode. The cortisol rises, the adrenaline spikes, and your HRV becomes chaotic and tight. This is the frequency of overthinking, of fire drills, trying to fix everything right now. Beta is useful, let's be clear, it gets things done. But when you live here chronically, your body believes that you're in danger 24/7, and your capacity for insight completely shuts down. Beta is where AI lives, where technology lives, pure calculation, zero intuition. Alpha is the first shift out of survival mode. It's when the mind relaxes but remains alert. It's the doorway between the conscious mind and the subconscious. Alpha feels like clarity, presence, pressure dropping, and the moment when ideas begin to float toward you instead of you chasing them. This is why your ideas show up on a walk, in the shower, during quiet time, not because you actually got lucky, because you shifted your frequency. Alpha is the bridge to deeper intelligence. Then Theta is where the real magic happens. It's where the analytical mind finally steps completely aside and the intuitive mind comes online. Biologically, Theta is when your body shifts into its deepest calm mode. You get a boost of dopamine, which helps you recognize patterns and feel motivated, and your nervous system switches into rest and restore mode, where you finally feel safe, open and receptive. You can access Theta during deep meditations, trance, or when you enter light sleep. It's where unrelated ideas suddenly snap together, where you access solutions that you couldn't think your way into. This is the frequency that the shamans, the monks, and the mystics were aiming for long before neuroscience existed. Gamma is the top of the ladder, the aha moment burst. It appears in very specific moments when alpha has relaxed your perception, when theta has connected the dots, and your brain suddenly integrates everything at once. This is the literal, measurable moment of revelation. So now that you understand how intelligence actually works, let's make a zoom out and understand what is happening around the world, because humanity is at a tipping point. One group is stuck at the rational level, desperately trying to compete with technology, pushing harder, thinking faster, and even working longer. They are stuck in beta frequency, locked in system 2, grinding in the task positive network. They are trying to compete with a 40 bits per second computer, and sadly they're gonna lose, because AI and technology will only do these things better, faster and cheaper. The other group though is accessing what is uniquely fundamental to highly aligned human beings. They understand they are quantum receivers connected to an infinite field. They know how to shift from beta to alpha to theta. They know how to activate their default mode network, and they know how to access this higher intelligence. Human evolution will not happen around us through machines. It will happen through us, biological beings. The key is not becoming more mechanical, but by remembering what we truly are: receivers of intelligence, conduits of consciousness, waves in a universal field of information. The greatest humans of the next century will not be the smartest in the old sense. They will be the most aligned. And if what I'm telling you resonates even a little inside of you, it's because a part of you already know this is true. And inside Holgren Wisdom, I teach you what doesn't fit in a single video: how to access the higher mind, how to tune into the field of intelligence, how to rewire your nervous system for intuition, how to reconnect with your purpose, and how to stay coherent in the chaos of the technological age. Because humanity is evolving at a light speed, and the only founders who will thrive are the ones who evolve internally at the same pace. So if you are ready to become a quantum founder, click the link below and join hundreds of other entrepreneurs at Holgren Wisdom. This is the future of entrepreneurship, and it starts within you.